The scroll was unearthed during the Ming Dynasty, though it is far older. There is a spot here. The writing says that if you pierce it, apocalypse will be no more.
There are only but so many ways to kill a giant. For to kill a giant is to kill the moon. One of the most common ways, if not the most used way, is to attack the neck, for the Titanic is the known weak spot. You see, all giant stories encode the moon, and all Titan stories encode the supermoon. And what best way to attack the moon?
I'll show you the dark side.
In these Titan stories, we see that the neck is used to negotiate, to threaten, and to end certain characters. The neck is used in many moon stories, including bug moon stories, honeymoon stories, and even blood moon stories. And in these stories, what you'll notice is that the smaller character will almost always instinctively jump on the largest character back to try to get access to their thoracic cavity, to their neck, or to their trapeze area. Access to this area is not only used to injure or harm the Titan, it could also be used to tame or control or persuade the Titan. And it's not by coincidence that Thor attacks the thoracic cavity, as some of our body parts are named after the sky directly and or myths that point back to the sky. For it is the thoracic cavity and the neck where we feel the influence of a cold or the flu, or if the moon, the influence. And in stories where there are man titans, you'll notice that the men or the women will be housed in the chest or thoracic area, in or the neck or the head. And like us, it's important to protect those areas so that there won't be any influence inside. Brachiosaurus, bronchi, thorax, T-Rex. Naming titans after our anatomy is a play on the idea of letting us know that it's really a story about us under the influence of a supermoon. And we often see the comparison between smaller characters and then titans, or the smaller character becomes a titan, because it's a play on the idea of growth hormone, which is directly associated with the moon. All hormones are associated with the hour of the moon. This is where we get the word hormones from. Understanding anatomy in giant and titan stories will help you see a deeper level of storytelling being told. What do you think this means? The Titanic. These stories will often mock the Titanic story, where you see a large ship or a large spinal column with the neck portion being punctured or injured like the Titanic. And it goes over most people's heads, because most people don't realize that all giant stories are encoding the moon. The story of the Titanic encodes the moon. And in these Titanic stories, you'll often see some type of hint of the Titanic in there, whether it be a giant ship that gets crashed or wrecked, or the Titan picking up an anchor, or even crashing into a ship themselves, and then other references to the director of Titanic before a ship crashes, with an iceberg that pops it. And the Adventures films have a lot of pointbacks to Titanics, in which the Chitauri, and the Chitauri is a play on the word Chi, which is moon, and then Tauri, which is Taurus, so moon Taurus, and they attack in their spinal columns that are large and get beat at the neck portion, but then they also attack in another vehicle, which is the giant Q, or the Q ships. And the Q ships are a point back to the World War I, World War II era of the U-boats and the Q ships. And sure enough, in this film, a Q ship crashes, like the Titanic, or on Titan. And these Chitauri creatures are called Leviathans, and you'll see in a lot of different giant stories that there'll be a point to a Leviathan or a Levi, and a point to the biblical stories of Leviticus or the Levites. And if you notice, most of the original part of the Bible is moon-based, where you have Solomon or Solomon, one moon, and then you have Abraham and Isaac, and those are characters associated with the moon. Just look at the cast for Moon Knight. So you'll see in a lot of different stories a reference to Levites or Levi. In Attack on Titans, there's a Captain Levi. And then just think about if you don't have jeans on and your butt cheeks are exposed, you're mooning someone. But when they're covered, you're wearing Levi's. It's the same kind of idea. And the Leviathan is a play also on old myths and stories that involve the giant Titan in the ocean, the Leviathan, or the Titan in the sky. Or the Kraken is another name or renaming of the idea of a Leviathan. And you'll see in a lot of different stories that have Titans, the villain or the character will have Kraken-like features. As mentioned before, in these stories with Titans, there will usually be a stone that's encoded, for a stone is what represents the moon, or is a representation of the moon. And sometimes these stones will be used or placed around a character's neck. Want to know where the rock is that destroyed the dinosaurs?